Billionaire couldn't eat anything except food cooked by his new maid. Then he discovered who she was. Alexander Chen stood in his penthouse kitchen, staring at the untouched plate of filet mignon prepared by his personal chef. The aroma that would make most people's mouths water only turned his stomach. He pushed the plate away with a sigh that seemed to come from the depths of his soul. "Mr. Chen, is something wrong with the preparation?" his chef asked, concern etching lines across his forehead. Alexander shook his head. "No, Marcus. I'm sure it's perfect. I can't." This had been his reality for the past 8 months. The 33-year-old tech billionaire, who had built an empire from a college dorm room, now faced an enemy he couldn't code his way around. Food had become his adversary. Every meal prepared by his team of world-class chefs, every dish from Michelin-star restaurants, everything tasted wrong. Or worse, tasted like nothing at all. He'd seen countless doctors. Specialists had run every test imaginable. The diagnosis was always the same. There was nothing physically wrong with him. One psychiatrist suggested it was psychosomatic, stemming from the trauma of losing his parents in a car accident 2 years ago. Another claimed it was burnout from working 16-hour days for a decade. Alexander didn't care about the why anymore. He just wanted to eat without feeling nauseous. He'd lost 25 pounds, and his once athletic frame now looked gaunt. His assistant, Patricia, had taken to leaving protein shakes around his office, which he could barely stomach. "Maybe we should try a different cuisine?" Marcus suggested hopefully. "Japanese? Ethiopian? I can learn anything you want." "Thank you, Marcus, but I think I need to take a break from all of this." Alexander gestured vaguely at the pristine kitchen, the state-of-the-art appliances, the refrigerator stocked with ingredients most people couldn't even pronounce. After Marcus left, Alexander wandered to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. The city glittered beneath him, millions of lives playing out in the buildings below. He'd achieved everything he'd set out to accomplish by 30. His company, Chen Technologies, had revolutionized cloud computing. He had more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. But what good was any of it if he was slowly wasting away? His phone buzzed. Patricia's name flashed on the screen. "Alex, I know you said no more doctors, but hear me out," she said before he could speak. "My friend runs a domestic staffing agency. She mentioned something interesting. Sometimes people in your situation respond better to home cooking. Not restaurant-style food, just regular meals. Comfort food." Alexander almost laughed. Comfort food. When had he last had that? His mother used to make him soup dumplings every Sunday, the kind that took hours to prepare. After she died, he tried ordering them from every Chinese restaurant in the city. None of them came close. "I don't need another chef, Patricia." "Not a chef. A housekeeper who cooks. Someone who makes normal food. What have you got to lose?" She had a point. Alexander was desperate enough to try anything. "Fine. Set up some interviews." 3 days later, Alexander found himself sitting in his living room as Patricia brought in candidates. The first woman was in her 50s, stern-faced, with a resume listing 3 decades of experience with high-profile families. She spoke about her culinary training in France and her specialty in dietary restrictions. "Next," Alexander said after 10 minutes. The second candidate was a young man, energetic and eager, who promised to revolutionize his palate with fusion cuisine. Next. The third through fifth candidates blurred together. They were all qualified, all professional, all perfectly wrong. "There's one more," Patricia said, checking her tablet. "Though I should mention, she's a bit different from the others. She's young, only been in the business for 6 months. Single mother. But Sarah at the agency spoke very highly of her, said there was something special about her cooking. Send her in." Alexander didn't look up when the door opened. He was reading through emails on his phone, half paying attention. It wasn't until he heard a small, unmistakable sound that his head snapped up. A baby was cooing. The woman standing in his doorway was younger than the other candidates, maybe in her late 20s. She had warm brown eyes that held an apology, and she was gently bouncing a baby carrier that held an infant who couldn't have been more than a few months old. "I am so sorry, Mr. Chen," she said quickly. My babysitter canceled last minute, and I couldn't find anyone else. I completely understand if you want to reschedule. It's fine, Alexander heard himself say. Something about her flustered honesty was refreshing after the parade of polished professionals. Please sit down. She settled onto the couch carefully, positioning the carrier beside her. The baby, a girl, judging by the pink onesie, gazed around with wide, curious eyes. I'm Emma Rodriguez, the woman said, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. And this is Sophia. She's 5 months old. Alexander found himself staring at the baby, who had discovered her own fingers and was examining them with the concentration of a scientist. Your resume is thin, he said, forcing himself back to business. Emma's cheeks flushed. I know. I was an elementary school teacher before Sophia was born. But the childcare costs were more than my salary, and I needed something with flexible hours. A friend suggested housekeeping, and I discovered I actually love it. Especially the cooking part. The agency said there was something special about your cooking. I don't know about special, Emma said with a self-deprecating smile. I just cook the way my grandmother taught me. Nothing fancy. Just food that tastes like home, you know? Food that reminds you that someone cares. Something in Alexander's chest tightened. When was the last time anyone had cooked for him because they cared, not because they were paid to? What would you make me for dinner tonight if I hired you? He asked. Emma thought for a moment, absently reaching over to adjust Sophia's blanket. Well, if you're like most people I know, you probably haven't had a good, simple roast chicken in a while. I'd make that with roasted vegetables, nothing fancy, just carrots, potatoes, onions, the kind that gets sweet and caramelized. Some crusty bread. Maybe an apple crisp for dessert, if you wanted something sweet. Alexander's stomach didn't turn at the description. That was new. You're hired, he said. Can you start tomorrow? Emma's eyes widened. Really? Just like that? Don't you want to check my references, or? Patricia has already vetted you. Tomorrow, 6 p.m. Make me dinner. We'll go from there. After Emma left, Patricia raised an eyebrow at him. You didn't even ask about her cooking experience. No, Alexander agreed. But did you see the way she talked about food? Like it was about more than just eating. You're getting soft in your old age, Patricia teased. Alexander returned to the window, watching the city below. For the first time in 8 months, he felt something that might have been hope. Or maybe it was just hunger. Emma stood in Alexander Chen's kitchen, trying not to feel intimidated. She'd cooked in nice kitchens before, but this was something else entirely. The refrigerator was larger than her bedroom. The stove probably cost more than her car. Every surface gleamed with a kind of perfection that suggested it was rarely used. Sophia was asleep in her carrier, set up in the corner of the kitchen where Emma could see her. She'd been worried about bringing her baby to work, but Mr. Chen's assistant had assured her it was fine. Between you and me, Patricia had whispered, I think seeing her yesterday softened him up. He's not as scary as he seems. Emma wasn't sure about that. Alexander Chen had a reputation. The press called him brilliant, ruthless, a visionary. They also called him cold. But yesterday, for just a moment when he'd looked at Sophia, she'd seen something else in his eyes. Something sad and lost. She pushed the thought away and focused on the task at hand. She'd stopped at the grocery store on the way over, spending a chunk of her limited budget on ingredients. This job paid well, far better than her teaching salary, but she wouldn't see a paycheck for 2 weeks. Still, she couldn't make a good meal without good ingredients. The chicken was organic, free-range, and probably the most expensive bird she'd ever bought. She rubbed it with butter, salt, pepper, and fresh herbs, then stuffed the cavity with a lemon and more herbs. The vegetables were already prepped and tossed with olive oil and seasoning. As she worked, Emma found herself relaxing. Cooking had always been her meditation. Growing up, she'd spent hours in the kitchen with her grandmother, learning not just recipes, but the rhythm of meal preparation. The way you could pour love and care into food. How the act of feeding someone was one of the most fundamental ways to show you cared. She tried to teach her ex-boyfriend that, but Derek had never understood. Food was just fuel to him, something to grab between gaming sessions. When she'd gotten pregnant, he'd been clear. He wasn't ready for that kind of responsibility. He'd left before Sophia was even born. The oven timer pulled her from her thoughts. She checked the chicken, golden brown and perfect. The vegetables had caramelized beautifully. She'd brought fresh rosemary bread from a bakery near her apartment, the kind that was crusty on the outside and pillowy soft inside. At exactly 6 o'clock, she heard footsteps. Alexander Chen entered the kitchen, loosening his tie. He looked tired, she thought. His eyes had dark circles, and his suit hung a bit loose on his frame. "Something smells good," he said, and she heard surprise in his voice. "It's ready if you'd like to eat now," Emma replied, suddenly nervous. What if he hated it? What if this job disappeared as quickly as it had materialized? She plated the food simply. No fancy garnishes or towers of food. Just a generous portion of chicken, the crispy skin on top, surrounded by the roasted vegetables. A slice of bread on the side. She set it on the dining table by the windows. Alexander sat down, staring at the plate like it might bite him. Emma hovered nervously, wiping her hands on her apron.
"You can go," he said.
"Come back in an hour to clean up." "Are you sure?" "I could. I prefer to eat alone." Embarrassed, Emma quickly packed up Sophia and left. She spent the next hour at a coffee shop around the corner, nursing a cup of tea she couldn't really afford and wondering if she'd just lost this job before it really began. When she returned, her heart hammering, she found Alexander still sitting at the table. The plate was empty. Completely empty. He was staring out at the city lights, but he turned when she entered. Was it okay?" Emma asked, tentatively. Alexander looked at her, and she was startled to see his eyes were red, like he'd been crying. "I ate," he said simply. "I ate everything. I haven't been able to do that in 8 months." Emma felt her own eyes prick with tears. "Oh, thank goodness. I was so worried." "What did you do to it?" he interrupted. "What was different?" "I didn't do anything special," Emma said honestly. "I just cooked it the way my grandmother taught me. With care, I guess. Like I was making it for someone I loved." Alexander was quiet for a long moment. "My mother used to say that," he said finally, "that the secret ingredient was always love. I thought it was just something parents said." "Your mother sounds like she was a wise woman." "She was." His voice was rough. "She died 2 years ago. Car accident. My father, too." "I'm so sorry," Emma whispered. "Since then, I haven't been able to eat properly. The doctors said there was nothing wrong with me physically, but everything tasted like ash. Or like nothing at all. Until tonight." He looked at her intently. "Tonight, I could taste it. All of it. The herbs, the lemon, the way the chicken skin was crispy and the meat was tender. It was like waking up after being asleep for years." Emma felt tears slide down her cheeks. She understood loss, maybe not on that scale, but she understood what it was like to feel numb. She'd felt that way after Derek left, after she'd realized she was going to raise Sophia alone. "I'd like you to come every day," Alexander said. "Make me 3 meals a day. Name your price." "Mr. Chen, I can't accept." "Yes, you can. You have a baby to support. And I need to eat. It's a business arrangement." But Emma could see in his eyes it was more than that. She'd given him something he'd thought he'd lost forever. And in a strange way, he was giving her something too, a chance to do what she loved, to take care of someone, to make a difference. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll do it." Sophia chose that moment to wake up, her small cry filling the silence. Emma quickly went to her, lifting her from the carrier and soothing her. "May I?" Alexander asked hesitantly, standing. Emma blinked in surprise but nodded. Alexander approached carefully, looking at Sophia with that same lost expression Emma had seen yesterday. "She's beautiful," he said quietly. "She has your eyes." "She's my whole world," Emma replied. Alexander reached out a finger, and Sophia grabbed it with her tiny hand, holding tight. He smiled, really smiled, and Emma saw the man he must have been before grief had carved away his joy. "Thank you," he said, still looking at Sophia. "For tonight. For giving me hope that I might actually survive this." "You will," Emma said with certainty. one meal at a time. As she packed up to leave, Sophia back in her carrier and her supplies organized, Emma felt something shift in her understanding of this job. This wasn't just about cooking.
It was about healing.
Both of them were broken in different ways, him by loss, her by betrayal and struggle. But maybe, just maybe, they could help each other become whole again. She didn't know then how right she was, or how complicated that healing would become. 3 weeks passed, and a routine emerged. Emma arrived at Alexander's penthouse at 6 in the morning to make breakfast. She'd bring Sophia, setting up a portable play area in the corner of the living room. While the baby played or napped, Emma would cook. Breakfast was simple but hearty: scrambled eggs with herbs, thick-cut bacon, fresh fruit, and homemade muffins that filled the apartment with the scent of cinnamon and vanilla. Alexander had started joining her in the kitchen while she cooked, sitting at the counter with his laptop, working through emails. "You don't have to keep me company," Emma said one morning, whisking eggs in a bowl. "I'm not," Alexander replied without looking up from his screen. "I just work better with the smell of food cooking." "Is that strange?" "Not at all. My grandmother said a home only feels like a home when something's cooking in the kitchen." He glanced at her then, a hint of a smile on his lips. "Your grandmother sounds like she had a lot of wisdom. She raised 7 kids on a factory worker's salary. She knew how to make something from nothing." Emma poured the eggs into the heated pan, watching them begin to set. "She passed away when I was in college. I miss her every day." "What would she think of you now? Cooking for a billionaire?" Emma laughed. "She'd probably tell me to make sure you're eating your vegetables and not working too hard." She was very practical that way. The eggs were perfect, soft and creamy. She plated them with the bacon and a muffin still warm from the oven. Alexander ate slowly, savoring each bite. He'd put on some weight in the past few weeks, the gauntness leaving his face. He looked healthier, younger somehow. "I have a board meeting this afternoon," he said between bites. "It'll run late. Would you mind leaving dinner in the fridge? I can reheat it." "Absolutely not," Emma said firmly. "Reheated food is never as good. What time will you be done?" "Probably 9. Then I'll come back at 8:30 and have dinner ready for 9:15. Alexander looked up, surprised. "Emma, that's too much. You've already been here all day." "I don't mind. Besides, Sophia loves the nighttime city view from your windows. It's one of the few things that calms her down when she's fussy." It was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. The reality was that Emma's small apartment felt cramped and lonely, especially in the evenings. Here, in Alexander's beautiful space, with purpose and someone to care for, she felt less alone. Alexander studied her for a moment, and she wondered if he could see through her excuse. But he just nodded. "Okay, thank you." That evening, Emma returned as promised. Sophia was in a mood, crying inconsolably. Emma tried everything, feeding her, changing her, singing, rocking, but nothing worked. The baby's cries echoed through the penthouse. "I'm so sorry," Emma said when Alexander arrived home early, looking concerned. "She's usually not like this. I think she might be starting to teeth. Maybe I should go." "Don't," Alexander said quickly.
"Stay.
"Let me try something." Before Emma could protest, he'd taken off his suit jacket and held out his hands. "May I?" Hesitantly, Emma handed over her daughter. Alexander held Sophia awkwardly at first, like she might break. Then, slowly, he found a rhythm, bouncing her gently and walking to the windows. "Look at all those lights, Sophia," he said softly. "Each one is someone's home. Someone's story. You're going to grow up in a city full of stories." To Emma's amazement, Sophia's cries reduced to hiccups, then stopped altogether. The baby stared up at Alexander with wide, curious eyes. "How did you do that?" Emma asked, stunned. "I have no idea," Alexander admitted, looking equally surprised. "I've never held a baby before. Never. I'm an only child. No nieces or nephews. My parents." He trailed off, his expression darkening. "They wanted grandchildren. I always said there was time." Emma's heart ached for him. "There's still time," she said gently. You're only 33. Time, yes. But the desire? I built my company instead of a family. Relationships always seemed complicated.
Messy.
Not worth the distraction. That sounds lonely. It was efficient, he corrected, but there was no conviction in his voice. Sophia had fallen asleep in his arms, her tiny fist curled against his chest. Alexander looked down at her with an expression of such tender wonder that Emma had to look away, feeling like she was intruding on a private moment. You're a natural, she said, moving to the kitchen to start dinner. Some people just have it. My mother did, Alexander said quietly, still holding Sophia. She could calm anyone, make anyone feel safe. When I was building the company, working 20-hour days, terrified I was going to fail, she'd make me soup dumplings and sit with me while I ate. She never said it would be okay. She just was there. Emma's hands stilled on the cutting board. That's what love is, she said. Just being there. Is that why you're so good at this? The cooking? Maybe, Emma admitted. After Derek, Sophia's father, left, I felt like I'd failed at everything. My relationship, my career plan, my idea of what my life would be. But cooking? I could do that. I could take care of someone, make them feel valued and safe and loved, even if it was just through food. That's not a small thing, Alexander said seriously. What you do, it's saving my life. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Emma felt her cheeks warm. I should put her in the carrier so you can eat, Alexander said, breaking the moment. But Sophia had other plans. Every time he tried to set her down, she'd whimper in protest. Eventually, Alexander ate one-handed, Sophia sleeping peacefully in his other arm. You really don't have to, Emma started. I want to, he said simply. Besides, this is the best meal you've made yet. What is it? Beef bourguignon. It's been simmering all day. It's incredible. The meat just falls apart. Emma glowed at the praise. Cooking for someone who truly appreciated food, who tasted every element and savored each bite, was a joy she hadn't expected. After dinner, as Emma packed up, Alexander was still holding Sophia, who had woken up and was babbling happily at him. She really likes you, Emma observed. The feeling is mutual, Alexander said. She's uncomplicated.
Honest.
If she's upset, she cries. If she's happy, she smiles. No hidden agendas or manipulation. That's babies for you. What you see is what you get. I wish more adults were like that. Emma understood. As a billionaire, Alexander probably never knew who to trust, who actually cared about him versus his money. For what it's worth, Emma said, I'm here because I care about making you good food. The paycheck is nice, but that's not why I keep coming back. Alexander met her eyes. Why do you keep coming back? Emma considered the question. Because you make me feel like what I do matters. Like, I'm not just a failed teacher struggling to survive. I'm someone who can make a difference. You are, Alexander said intensely. You have no idea how much. The moment stretched between them, charged with something Emma couldn't quite name. Then Sophia sneezed, breaking the tension, and they both laughed. I should get her home, Emma said reluctantly. It's past her bedtime. As she drove home in her beat-up Honda, Sophia dozing in the back seat, Emma couldn't stop thinking about the look in Alexander's eyes.
He was lonely, she realized.
For all his money and success, he was profoundly, desperately lonely. She understood that feeling. She lived it every day. But somehow, in taking care of him, she felt less alone too. It was dangerous, she told herself. He was her employer. This was a job. Getting emotionally attached would only lead to heartbreak. But her heart, it seemed, wasn't listening. It was a Saturday morning when everything shifted. Emma wasn't supposed to work weekends. Those were meant for spending time with Sophia, catching up on laundry, and pretending she had a normal life. But at 7 a.m., her phone rang. Emma? Alexander's voice was rough, strained. I'm sorry to call so early, but could you come over? Please? Are you okay? You sound. Just please come. I need. He stopped, and she heard him take a shaky breath. I need someone. Emma was in a taxi within 15 minutes, Sophia bundled in her carrier. She'd never heard Alexander sound like that, vulnerable, almost broken. It scared her. Patricia met her at the door, her professional composure cracked with worry. Thank God you're here. He's been up all night. Won't talk to me, won't eat. Today would have been his mother's birthday. Emma's heart clenched. She found Alexander in his office, still in yesterday's clothes, staring at his computer screen. The display showed photos, a beautiful Asian woman with kind eyes, laughing with a younger version of Alexander. Hey, Emma said softly. He didn't look up. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the birthdays I missed while building the company. All the dinners I was too busy to attend. She never complained, you know? She just smiled and said she understood. Emma set Sophia's carrier down and moved to sit beside him. She knew you loved her. Did she? His voice cracked. How could she, when I chose board meetings over her? When I couldn't even be bothered to call some weeks because I was too focused on the next product launch? Alexander. The last thing she said to me was, I'm proud of you no matter what. I barely looked up from my phone when she said it. I said, thanks, Mom, like she'd just passed me the salt. A tear ran down his cheek. That was the last time I saw her alive. Emma's own tears fell freely. Without thinking, she wrapped her arms around him, pulling his head to her shoulder. He stiffened for a moment, then collapsed against her, his body shaking with sobs he'd probably held back for 2 years. It's okay, she whispered, running her fingers through his hair like she would Sophia's when the baby was upset. Let it out. I've got you. They stayed like that for a long time, Alexander crying for the mother he'd lost and the time he could never get back, Emma holding him through it all. Sophia made small sounds from her carrier, as if she understood something important was happening. Finally, Alexander pulled back, wiping his eyes. I'm sorry. That was human, Emma finished. That was human. You don't have to apologize for grief. He looked at her, really looked at her, and Emma saw something shift in his expression.
How did you do it?
Stay so strong when you're raising Sophia alone. Don't you ever just break? All the time, Emma admitted. There are nights I cry in the shower, so Sophia won't hear. Days I wonder how I'll pay for everything she needs. Moments I'm terrified I'm failing her completely. You're not. You're an amazing mother. And you were a good son, Emma said firmly. Your mother knew that. Parents understand that their children have to live their own lives. The fact that you're this torn up about it shows how much you loved her. Alexander was quiet for a moment. Then, will you make her favorite meal today? Soup dumplings. I tried making them myself last year, but they were terrible. I'd be honored. Making soup dumplings was a labor of love that took hours. The dough had to be rolled paper thin. The filling needed to be perfectly seasoned. The broth had to gel just right so it would liquefy when steamed. Emma worked methodically, Sophia playing on a blanket nearby, while Alexander sat at the counter watching.
She used to let me help, he said.
I'd roll the wrappers while she filled them. I was terrible at it, they'd always be too thick or uneven. But she never complained. Want to try again? Emma asked, gesturing to the dough. Alexander hesitated, then nodded. He washed his hands and stood beside her at the counter. Emma showed him how to roll the dough, their shoulders touching as they worked side by side. Like this? He asked, holding up a wrapper. Perfect, Emma lied. It was lumpy and uneven, but she could see the concentration on his face, the way he was trying so hard to honor his mother's memory. They worked in comfortable silence, occasionally interrupted by Sophia's babbling. At one point, the baby started fussing, and Alexander automatically scooped her up, continuing to work one-handed while holding her against his chest. You're getting good at that, Emma observed. She's easy to please. Food, sleep, clean diaper. That's all she needs. If only adult relationships were that simple. Alexander glanced at her. Is that a hint at the father? You don't talk about him much. Emma's hands stilled on the dumplings she was forming. There's not much to say. Derek was my boyfriend for 2 years. When I told him I was pregnant, he said he wasn't ready to be a father. Asked if I'd considered not keeping her. When I said no, he left. I haven't heard from him since. He's an idiot, Alexander said flatly. He's scared, Emma corrected. Some people run from responsibility. It's easier than facing it. That's not an excuse. No, but it's a reason. And I can't hate him because he gave me Sophia. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. Alexander looked down at the baby in his arms, then back at Emma. She's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. She gives me purpose. A reason to keep going even when everything feels impossible. Is everything feeling impossible? Alexander asked quietly. Emma meant to deflect, to keep things professional. But something about the intimacy of the moment, the two of them making dumplings in memory of his mother, Sophia babbling happily between them, made her honest. Sometimes, she admitted, my apartment has mold in the bathroom that my landlord won't fix. Sophia's outgrowing all her clothes, and I can barely afford new ones. I got a bill from the hospital yesterday for her birth. Apparently my insurance didn't cover everything. It's $4,000. Emma, I'm not telling you this to ask for help, she said quickly. You already pay me more than fairly. You asked if things feel impossible, and sometimes they do. But then Sophia smiles at me, or I make a good meal, or... She trailed off. Or what? Or I come here and feel like I'm making a real difference in someone's life. That's not nothing. Alexander was quiet for a long moment. You make more than a difference. You make me feel human again. Like there's a point to still being here. The words hit Emma in the chest. She met his eyes and saw something there that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. This wasn't just employer and employee anymore. It hadn't been for weeks. Alexander, she whispered. I know, he said. I know it's complicated. I know I'm your boss and this could mess everything up. But I can't stop, he stopped, shaking his head. Never mind. Forget I said anything. But Emma couldn't forget. Because she felt it too, this pull, this connection that went beyond food and shared loneliness. She saw him now, not as the billionaire boss, but as a broken man trying to heal. A person who held her baby like she was precious. Someone who tasted her food like she'd given him a gift. The dumplings finished steaming, each one perfect and delicate. They sat at the table, Emma, Alexander, and Sophia in her carrier, and ate in silence. Emma watched as Alexander took his first bite, saw his eyes close as the broth burst on his tongue. It tastes exactly like hers, he whispered. Thank you. Later, after the kitchen was cleaned and Sophia was fed, Emma prepared to leave. Alexander walked her to the door, a rare occurrence. Emma, he said as she was putting on her coat. That hospital bill. Consider it a bonus. For everything you've done. I can't accept. Yes, you can. And the mold in your apartment. Give me your landlord's contact information. I'll handle it. Alexander. Please. Let me do this. You've given me so much. Let me give you something back. Emma wanted to argue, to maintain some boundary between them. But she was tired of being strong all the time. Tired of doing everything alone. Okay, she whispered. Thank you. He smiled, reaching out to brush a flour smudge from her cheek. The touch lasted a second too long, his thumb lingering on her skin. See you Monday? He asked. See you Monday. As Emma drove home, Sophia asleep in the back seat, she knew they'd crossed a line today. The question was whether they'd have the courage to cross the rest of the way, or the wisdom to step back before someone got hurt. The mold was gone within 3 days. Not just cleaned, but the entire bathroom renovated. Emma came home to find workers putting the finishing touches on new tile, a new shower, fresh paint. We didn't authorize this, she told the foreman, confused. He shrugged. Talk to the guy who paid for it. Mr. Chen said to do whatever was needed. The hospital bill was paid too. Emma found out when she called to set up a payment plan and was told her balance was $0. A lump sum payment had been made by Chen Technologies. She should have been grateful. She was grateful.
But she was also terrified.
You're doing too much, she told Alexander the next morning, setting his breakfast down with more force than necessary. He looked up from his laptop, surprised. I'm helping. There's a difference. Is there? Because it feels like you're trying to fix my life. Would that be so terrible? Yes. Emma's voice rose, startling Sophia, who started to cry. She immediately scooped up her daughter, soothing her. I don't need to be saved, Alexander. I need to be able to take care of myself and my daughter. I'm not trying to save you. I'm trying to make your life easier so you can focus on taking care of yourself and Sophia. There's a difference. To you, maybe. To me, it feels like charity. Alexander stood, his jaw tight. Everything isn't charity, Emma. Sometimes people just want to help people they care about. The words hung between them. People they care about. This can't happen, Emma said quietly, her voice breaking. Whatever this is between us, it can't happen. Why not? Because you're my employer. Because I need this job to survive. Because, she stopped, tears streaming down her face. Because when this ends, and it will end, I'll be devastated. And I can't afford to be devastated. I have Sophia to think about. Who says it has to end? History, statistics, common sense. Emma wiped her eyes roughly. I'm a broke single mother with a high school teaching degree. You're a billionaire who builds companies. We live in different worlds. That's not true. It is true. And the sooner we both accept it, the better. Emma grabbed Sophia's carrier and her bag. I need to go. I'll come back this afternoon to make dinner. Emma, wait. But she was already gone, practically running to the elevator. She couldn't breathe in that apartment anymore, couldn't think straight with Alexander looking at her like she was something precious and breakable. She spent the afternoon in a park, pushing Sophia's stroller and trying to get her racing heart under control. What was she doing? Alexander Chun was the best thing that had happened to her in years. He was kind, generous, and somehow saw value in her beyond her ability to cook his meals. He held her daughter like she mattered. He made Emma feel like she mattered. But that was the problem, wasn't it? She was starting to need that feeling. Need him. And need was dangerous when you had nothing to bargain with. Her phone rang. Patricia. Emma, thank God. Are you okay? Alexander is worried sick. I'm fine. I just needed some air. He wants me to tell you to take the rest of the week off. Paid, of course. I don't need. He's not giving you a choice. His words, not mine. Also, Emma? Patricia's voice softened. I've worked for Alexander for 8 years. I've never seen him like this. Whatever you're afraid of, maybe it's worth being brave. That evening, Emma's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo, Alexander at his kitchen counter, surrounded by cooking ingredients with a caption, "Attempting dinner myself. How hard can soup be?" Another photo arrived 5 minutes later, a pot of something that looked distinctly inedible. Never mind. Found my limit. Despite everything, Emma laughed. She typed back. What did you do to that poor soup? 3 dots appeared immediately. I think I added salt instead of sugar? Or was I supposed to add sugar to soup? I'm very confused. No sugar in soup. Most of the time. Most of the time? There are exceptions. What were you trying to make? Tomato soup. You made it last week, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Emma's heart squeezed. She found herself typing. I'll text you the recipe. Follow it exactly. Or you could come over and supervise? Emma stared at her phone for a long moment. This was her chance to establish boundaries, to keep this relationship professional and safe. I'll be there in an hour, she typed. She found Alexander in his kitchen, sheepishly stirring a pot while reading instructions on his phone. He looked up when she entered, relief flooding his face. You came. Someone has to make sure you don't burn down this penthouse. They worked side by side, Emma correcting his technique, Alexander following her instructions with the focus he probably applied to coding. Sophia watched from her play mat, babbling commentary. I'm sorry, Alexander said as they waited for the soup to simmer. For overstepping. For making you uncomfortable. That wasn't my intention. I know, Emma said. And I'm sorry for running away. That's my default when things get scary. What's scary about this? Everything, Emma admitted. I'm scared you'll wake up one day and realize I'm just the help. I'm scared I'm reading too much into kindness. I'm scared of needing you, and then losing you. Alexander turned to face her fully. I'm scared too. I'm scared of caring about someone again and having them leave. I'm scared of being vulnerable. I'm scared that I'm too damaged to be what anyone needs. You're not damaged, Emma said softly. You're grieving. There's a difference. You make me feel like I can survive it, though. The grief. For the first time in 2 years, I wake up and don't wish I hadn't. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Alexander, I'm not asking you to fix me or save me or anything like that. I'm just asking, can we be honest about what this is? Can we stop pretending we don't feel something here? And what happens when it all falls apart? Emma whispered. When you get tired of complicated or realize dating someone with a baby is too much? What happens if it doesn't fall apart? Alexander countered. What if it's actually the thing that puts us both back together? Sophia chose that moment to start crying, a hungry cry that demanded immediate attention. Emma moved to pick her up, but Alexander beat her to it, scooping the baby into his arms. Hey, little one, he murmured. Your timing is terrible, you know that? But he was smiling as he said it, bouncing Sophia gently. Emma prepared a bottle, watching as this billionaire tech genius cradled her daughter like she was the most important thing in the world. She needs to eat soon, Emma said, handing him the bottle. Alexander settled onto the couch, feeding Sophia with a confidence that shouldn't have been possible for someone who'd never held a baby before 5 weeks ago. Emma sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. I don't have answers, Emma said quietly. I don't know how this could work or if it even should. Neither do I, Alexander admitted. But I know I want to try. And I think you do too. Sophia finished her bottle and immediately fell asleep in Alexander's arms, her tiny mouth curved in a milk-drunk smile. Emma reached over to brush a curl from her daughter's forehead. She loves you, Emma observed. The feeling is mutual. Alexander looked at Emma, his eyes intense. Both of you. Emma's breath caught. Alexander. You don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. Whatever happens, however scared we both are, I care about you. About Sophia. You've become essential. Emma leaned her head on his shoulder, watching the city lights twinkle outside the window. Sophia slept between them, her small body the bridge connecting their broken pieces. I care about you too, Emma whispered. That's what scares me most. They sat like that for a long time, 3 damaged souls finding unexpected comfort in each other's presence. The soup eventually finished cooking, perfect like everything Emma made. They ate it together, Sophia sleeping nearby, and talked about everything and nothing. As Emma was leaving that night, Alexander caught her hand. Take tomorrow off, he said. Spend it with Sophia. I'll survive on takeout for 1 day. Are you sure? I'm sure. But Emma?
Come back.
Please come back.
She squeezed his hand.
I will. I promise. Driving home, Emma realized that for the first time since Derek left, she wasn't just surviving. She was living.
Taking a chance.
Believing that maybe, just maybe, broken people could heal each other.
It was terrifying.
But it was also the most alive she'd felt in years. 2 months later, Emma woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows, floor-to-ceiling panes that offered a view of Manhattan spreading out like a promise. She stretched, smiling at the sound of voices from the kitchen. Not just any voices. The voices that had become her home. She found Alexander at the stove, Sophia in a high chair beside him, both focused intently on pancakes. Alexander was narrating his process like a cooking show host. And now we flip it, Sophia.
Watch.
This is where Daddy. He stopped, his cheeks flushing. Where I usually mess up. The pancake flipped perfectly, and Sophia clapped her hands, squealing with delight. Alexander beamed at her like she'd just solved quantum physics. Look at you two, Emma said from the doorway. Professional chefs. Alexander turned, his face lighting up in a way that still made Emma's heart skip. We're making breakfast. Well, I'm making breakfast. Sophia is providing moral support and supervision. How's it going, baby girl? Emma asked, kissing Sophia's head. The baby was 8 months old now, sitting up on her own, babbling constantly, and, according to Alexander, the smartest baby who had ever existed. She's been very encouraging, Alexander reported. Only threw her toy at me twice, which I'm counting as approval. Emma laughed, wrapping her arms around his waist from behind and resting her cheek against his back. This still felt surreal, the casual intimacy, the morning routine, the way Sophia lit up when she saw Alexander as much as she did for Emma. I was thinking, Alexander said, plating the pancakes, maybe we should make this official. Emma's heart stuttered. Official? He turned in her arms, suddenly nervous. Move in. Officially. I know you've been staying here most nights anyway, and your lease is up next month, and he stopped, taking a breath. I want you here. Both of you. Always. Alexander. I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring this out. But Emma, I wake up every morning grateful you exist. Sophia is the first thing I think about when I open my eyes. You've given me a family when I thought I'd never have one. Emma felt tears gathering. We're not a typical family. Thank God for that. Typical families are boring. I'm being serious. People will judge. They'll say I'm a gold digger, or you're having a midlife crisis. I don't care what people say, Alexander interrupted firmly. Do you know what Patricia told me yesterday? She said in the 8 years she's worked for me, she's never seen me happy. Not until you. Your employees probably think I'm using you. My employees love you. Yesterday, Marcus asked if you teach him how to make your pot roast. The security team takes turns offering to babysit Sophia. Patricia has already started a baby pool for when I'm going to propose. Emma's breath caught. Propose. Alexander's eyes widened. I mean, that's not what I'm doing right now. Unless you want me to, I can do it right now. I need to find a ring, but… Alexander. Emma laughed through tears. Breathe. He took a breath, then pulled her closer. I'm saying this wrong. What I mean is, you and Sophia are my family now. Not because of some grand romantic gesture or perfect timing, but because you feel like home. The only home I've had since my parents died. Emma cupped his face in her hands. You're ours too. You know that, right? Sophia looks for you when you're not here. She cries for you at night. Last week, her first real word was "Dad." It was not, Alexander said, but his voice was choked with emotion. It was. I recorded it on my phone. Want to see? Show me later. First, I need to know, will you move in? Let me take care of you both, not because I'm trying to save you, but because I love you. There it was. The word they'd been dancing around for weeks. Love. I love you too, Emma whispered. Even though you can't cook to save your life, and you hold Sophia weird sometimes, and you work too much. I hold her perfectly fine. And I love you because you learned how to make pancakes for her. Because you read parenting books like they're technical manuals. Because when she's crying at 3 a.m., you're the one who gets up first. She's my daughter, Alexander said simply. In every way that matters. Emma kissed him then, soft and sweet, while Sophia banged on her high chair tray demanding attention. They broke apart laughing. I think someone's hungry, Emma said. Someone's always hungry, Alexander replied, but he was already cutting up pancakes into baby-sized pieces. Later, after breakfast and Sophia's morning nap, Emma found herself in the spare bedroom that Alexander had converted into a nursery. It was beautiful, soft yellows and whites, a crib that probably cost more than Emma's first car, shelves lined with books and toys. I might have gone overboard, Alexander admitted, standing in the doorway. You think? Emma teased, gesturing to the elaborate mobile hanging above the crib. She needs stimulation for cognitive development. I read about it. Of course you did. Alexander came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Are you happy? Really happy. Emma leaned back against him, looking around the room that represented everything she'd never dared hope for: security, love, family. I'm terrified, she admitted. Every day I wake up afraid this is all a dream. That I'll blink and be back in my moldy apartment, struggling to make rent. That's not going to happen. You can't promise that. People leave, Alexander. They die or they change their minds or… Hey. He turned her to face him. I can't promise that nothing bad will ever happen. But I can promise that I choose you. Every day, I wake up and choose you and Sophia. That's not changing. Even when she's a teenager and hates us both? Especially then. We'll be the embarrassing parents who still hold hands and dance in the kitchen. Emma smiled through tears. You can dance. I'll learn. I learned to make pancakes, didn't I? Barely. Barely is still progress. He kissed her forehead. Move in with me, Emma. Let's be a weird, unconventional family together. When?
Now. Today.
I'll hire movers tomorrow. That's extremely fast. I've wasted too much of my life being careful and efficient and planning everything. For once, I want to just jump. Emma thought about it, really thought about it. A year ago, she'd been alone, scared, drowning in bills and exhaustion. Now she had a man who loved her daughter like his own, who made terrible pancakes but perfect promises. Okay, she said. Let's jump. The next few weeks were chaos. Emma's belongings, which fit in just a few boxes, arrived at the penthouse. Alexander insisted on keeping everything, finding space for her grandmother's old recipe box, her worn teaching books, the baby clothes Sophia had already outgrown but Emma couldn't bear to throw away. This place is starting to look lived in, Patricia observed one afternoon, eyeing the toys scattered across the previously pristine living room. It's a disaster, Emma said apologetically. It's a home, Patricia corrected. There's a difference. Alexander's never had one of those. It was true. Slowly but surely, the sterile penthouse was transforming. Sophia's giggles echoed off the walls. Emma's cooking filled the space with warmth. Alexander started leaving work at reasonable hours, rushing home to have dinner with his family. One evening, 3 months after Emma officially moved in, she found Alexander in the nursery. Sophia was asleep in his arms, and he was just sitting there, staring down at her with wonder. You okay? Emma asked softly. I was just thinking about my mother, he said. How she'd love Sophia. How she'd love you. Emma sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. Tell me about her.
And he did.
For hours, Alexander talked about his childhood, his parents, the life before grief and loneliness. Emma listened, occasionally adding her own stories, her grandmother's wisdom, her dreams of teaching, the joy and terror of being a single mother. We're both orphans in a way, Alexander said eventually. You lost your grandmother. Your parents weren't around much. I lost mine too young. Maybe that's why this works. We both understand what it's like to build family from scratch. Maybe, Emma agreed. Or maybe we just got really lucky. I don't believe in luck anymore, Alexander said. I believe in you. In us. In choosing each other every single day. 6 months later, on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday, Alexander came home from work with a small box. Emma was in the kitchen, making dinner while Sophia played nearby. It was so domestic, so normal, that Emma almost didn't notice the nervous energy radiating from him. What's wrong? She asked. Bad day.
No. Good day.
Great day, actually. He set down his briefcase, then got down on one knee. Emma's wooden spoon clattered to the floor. I know I said I wasn't going to propose that day in the kitchen, Alexander said, opening the box to reveal a simple but stunning ring. But that was 6 months ago. And every day since then, I've woken up more certain that I want forever with you and Sophia. Emma couldn't breathe. You taught me that love isn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. It's about showing up, making breakfast, holding someone when they cry, choosing each other even when it's complicated or messy or hard. He was crying now but smiling too. Will you marry me, Emma? Will you let me be Sophia's dad officially? Will you build this life with me? Yes, Emma whispered, then louder. Yes. He slipped the ring on her finger and pulled her into a kiss that tasted like tears and joy and coming home. Sophia, sensing something important was happening, started clapping and babbling excitedly. She approves, Emma laughed. Of course she does. She's been on my side from the beginning. That night, After Sophia was asleep and the dinner dishes were cleared, Emma and Alexander stood at the windows, watching the city lights twinkle below. The ring on Emma's finger caught the light, a promise of all the tomorrows ahead. "Are you scared?" Alexander asked. "Terrified," Emma admitted. "But the good kind of terrified. The kind that means something matters." "I love you," he said simply. "You and Sophia. My family. I love you too. My home." And it was true. Somewhere between the first meal and the 1,000th, between the tears and the laughter, between the fear and the bravery of trying again, they'd created something neither of them had expected, a family born not from convention but from choice, not from circumstance but from love. The billionaire who couldn't eat anything had found someone who fed his soul. The single mother who thought she'd lost everything had found someone who saw her value. The baby who started as a complication had become the bridge that brought two broken people together. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better, it was real. Messy and imperfect and absolutely perfect in its imperfection. Emma Rodriguez had walked into Alexander Chen's penthouse expecting to cook a few meals. Instead, she'd helped heal a broken heart, found love when she'd stopped looking for it, and created a home in the most unexpected place. And Alexander Chen, who'd thought he'd lost everything that mattered, discovered that the best things in life couldn't be coded or calculated. They could only be felt, tasted, and chosen every single day.